How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Hot Takes with Holmes here on Radio Free Radford. My name is Blake Holmes, and I'm here with my co-host, Isaiah Addair. Stick around with us today, as we're going to be talking about the recent action around the NBA, NCAA basketball coming back, and our predictions for the upcoming football action this weekend. On that note, let's jump right in. But first, let's discuss the World Series. The World Series finished last week. Houston won their first ever World Series in their team's history in Game 7 against the Los Angeles Dodgers. A little bit of a letdown in that game compared to the excitement level of the rest of the series, but in the grand scheme of things, this is one of the greatest World Series that we have ever witnessed. George Springer, outfielder for the Astros, is your World Series MVP, and these two teams separated themselves from the very beginning of this season to being known as two of the best teams in the MLB. I mean, at the beginning of this season, there really wasn't much of a comparison until a late season surge from a few other teams. Everyone thought these two were the obvious favorites to win, and Houston got the job done in the World Series. So moving on to NCAA basketball, college basketball is back. It's the countdown. It's leading up to one of my favorite times of the year, March Madness. And Radford will take on Georgia Southwestern tonight in Dedmon. Isaiah, who do you think takes that game?
I think Radford will. Not that I'm not a huge college basketball person. I'm a Mountaineer fan because I'm from West Virginia, but I don't keep up with it too much until March Madness really starts. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Radford just because I've heard really good things about their team this year. Radford athletics as a whole has done great this season. I've only heard good things about the basketball program, so I'm gonna take our team.
I'll have to agree with you on that one. So, big news in college basketball coming out here recently. LiAngelo Ball, younger brother of Lonzo and older brother of LaMelo, and two other teammates got caught shoplifting in China. They were released on bail, and they will not play in their season opener because they have been advised to stay in the hotel. So, the ultimate question to ask is, what does this do for UCLA, for LiAngelo, and most importantly, because we all know who his father is, what is his father going to say about this? We all know he has something to say about anything whatsoever. So what is he going to say about LiAngelo getting in? This is the first time that a Ball brother has been caught in legal trouble out of any of them. The question is, will LiAngelo be able to shock people on the basketball court enough or diversify his game enough to make people forget about this? Because he's not as flashy. He's not the superstar flashy player that LaMelo and Lonzo is. So, Isaiah, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I think it's going to have a huge impact on LiAngelo when it comes to his draft stock within the next year or two whenever he decides to to enter the NBA draft. I think from a maturity standpoint, that's going to be his biggest downfall. Yes, he's not as flashy as the other two players, and that makes some people believe that he has the lowest chance of any of the Ball brothers to make it to the NBA. But he's consistent. He's a solid player. He actually took LeBron James. They were playing, I think, a 2-on-2 game earlier in the offseason with LeBron James, him and one of his friends from UCLA. It's also on the team. And they actually beat James. So I think he's a solid player. I think he's a good talent. May not be flashy, but he gets the job done. But from a maturity standpoint, are you going to take a flyer on a guy like that? A good comparison could be something like, in the football world, be Johnny Manziel. He was actually really flashy. He was really, really solid in college. But it was a maturity issue. And it affected him once he got to the pros. Gave up a high draft pick for him. Got to the pros, flamed out because of the same issues. So I think it could end up being that type of decision by an NBA team.
Well, going off of that, you could also assume that maybe he would improve. He would mature from this. He would realize, just because I'm in the position that I am, I have so much publicity due to whatever reason, my basketball talent, my family. That family has more spotlight on them than any family in college basketball has of all time. So maybe LiAngelo will realize in this situation, I've got more spotlight on me, I've got more attention on me, I need to get my act together, I need to mature, and maybe he can treat this as a learning experience. So yes, it's the first day of the season, we get it. It's always fun to look and see who's going to win a championship. In whatever sport, whatever league you're thinking of, it's always fun. So who are some of your favorites, or who do you think has the best chance to take home the NCAA championship in March?
My two favorites right now, I believe I lean more toward Duke because they're always in contention. And they got a young team. Grayson Allen's back another year. I like Arizona. Arizona made a push last year. Obviously didn't even make it to the championship. But I still think Arizona could make a push because they always seem to be there. They always seem to not necessarily be in contention for a championship, but they're always in contention for a push at a championship.
I do agree with you on Duke. They have the number one recruiting class in the nation. Marvin Bagley III just looks insane coming in. They're going to have a terrifying front court. Grayson Allen's coming back. Maybe he's matured from his instance in his past career. Another team that a lot of people, I don't know if they've really thought about, because Tom Izzo is always one to look out for, is the Michigan State Spartans. Michigan State, they had a down year they had a down year last year and still made the NCAA tournament. That's what Tom Izzo can do for your team. And there are a few playmakers. Aaron Harris, a transfer, is an underrated one. Aaron Harris, originally from West Virginia, an underrated player. They have plenty of playmakers. They have their chance, and I think that Michigan State has just as good of a chance as anybody. So moving on to NBA, last night the Lakers took on the Wizards, which the Wizards escaped 111-95. The Pelicans took on the Raptors in Toronto. Raptors won 122-118. The Cavaliers lost to the Rockets 117-113. The Kings beat the Sixers 109-108 when rookie De'Aaron Fox hit a game winner to snap the 76ers' 5-game win streak. That's the longest that they have had in 6 years. And finally, the Denver Nuggets took down the Oklahoma City Thunder 102-94 in the Mile High City. So the ultimate question to ask right now, the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're 4-6. The Oklahoma City Thunder, they're 4-6. Is it time that we should actually be worried about these two teams? You know, there were so many question marks about the Thunder getting Carmelo Anthony, so much ISO in that system. And I will admit, on a show here recently, I actually stated that it was working beautifully well. I take back that statement. They've lost 4 in a row. It does not look like a successful experiment right now. And the Cavs, this is just not this. It's not the same play style. It's not the same team. LeBron James, stellar as always, but the rest of the team, it looks rough. And do you think getting Isaiah Thomas back in December, is it time that we start worrying about these two teams?
I do not think it's time to start worrying about these teams because they're both 4-6, 72 games left. It's a very long season, and when you got teams like a team with Russ and a team with Paul George and Melo, then the other side you have a team where D Rose, who's playing decent right now, is going to be coming up the bench for Isaiah Thomas later on. A team with LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, a team like that, and Jay Crowder as well. You got a team like that, and those two teams, all they have to do is squeak into playoffs, and they can still cause some damage. So all they have to do is they just have to get high enough to make it to playoffs, and then I think they'll be in a good position to at least get a middle to high seed.
I do apologize, a correction. Cleveland is 5-7. And the Oklahoma City Thunder are 4-7. So if the playoffs ended today, the Cleveland Cavaliers have played 12 games out of it. They have literally 70 games left. But if the playoffs were to end today, both of these teams are out of the playoffs, obviously. So going off of that same topic, the Orlando Magic, they are sitting at third in the Eastern Conference at 7-4. Aaron Gordon's played like a monster this season, and there looks to be some life in Orlando. So the question is, are the Magic for real?
I think they'll stay in contention for a top 3 spot, but they wouldn't be at 3 they'd only be at 4 if Cleveland was playing like they should be. But I still think that the top 2 teams in the East are Boston and Cleveland. I think. Do they have a chance to unseat them? I honestly don't think. I think later on the season, Cleveland will get things together, and they will jump. They'll jump the Magic. They might not beat out Boston for the number 1 seed, but those two teams I still believe are the two most talented, the two most well-rounded teams in the East.
I think Orlando has enough talent, and they've shown us enough talent so far to get to the playoffs. Now, title contender, that's the ultimate question. There's not many title contenders this year, especially with the big monster out west in Golden State. But Golden State, by the way, still tied with Houston, in fact, for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. But there aren't many title contenders by any means, and I don't think that we've seen enough from Orlando to call them a title contender just yet. So the hypothetical for the day, team that is expected to make the playoffs that does not, and the reason I didn't answer before about the one question is because I think my prediction is the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think it's not time to worry about the Cavs. I think it is time to worry about the Thunder. You've got so much star power. There is such a thing as too many ball-dominant players. That is a perfect example. If you watch when Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant played together, that's two ball-dominant players. They played beautifully. You saw with James Harden, they played pretty well. James Harden eventually was traded. There's just too much ISO. There is way too much ISO. There is not enough sharing. Russell Westbrook's still playing very well, but I mean, when you have 3 players that are known for dribbling the clock out, all on the same starting roster, do you really expect them to be able to pull out a true, bona fide, great experience throughout the regular season? Like, at times it's very fun to watch, but at an overall talent and an overall success level, is that the team you really want? Now, I'm not saying that they will not make the playoffs. I think they do make it. Now, compared to the title contender things that they were getting at the beginning of the season, I don't believe that to be true anymore. They're going to have to prove they can play more team-dominated basketball before me saying that they're going to make a run. And even, like I said, right now, they just don't look like a good basketball team. Outside of that starting 5, it does not look good right now. And as I actually was watching the Nuggets and Thunder game last night. There's not much teamwork other than, again, Russell Westbrook playing like a man on a mission. But it comes a time when you've got to have team basketball, and they just don't have that.
My team actually might be the Memphis Grizzlies. I know that might not be a popular pick, but if you look at the West, it's stacked. You got Houston, Golden State, Minnesota, Memphis, San Antonio, Denver, Portland, New Orleans, in that order right now. Sitting at number 9 is the Clippers. Blake Griffin has been playing really good so far, so I think for them to jump back into the playoff race, someone's going to have to step up besides Blake. He can't do it by himself. And they do have Drummond. Is it Drummond? No, it's not Drummond. It's Jordan. Sorry, get those confused. They still have DeAndre Jordan. So, I mean, I think they can get something. I think they can get something cooking, and they can sneak into the playoff picture. And then if Oklahoma City, who I think will get it together eventually, once they take that, 2 people are going to have to fall out of the playoff race that are in there right now. I don't see the Trailblazers doing that. I'm a huge fan of Damian Lillard. And I think Memphis might be the highest seed at this moment that will fall out to give way to the Clippers and the Thunder.
The problem is Memphis always seems to find a way. They have such a different play style than everyone else. You think of NBA today, you think three-pointers, high-flying, just high-scoring, when the Memphis Grizzlies are not that case. So the question is, do they know how to get their hands dirty on defense? Is that enough to get them to the playoffs, get them an 8 seed? Remember, for the past 2 or 3 years, no one expected, or I'm not going to say no one, it was a lot of people thought that Memphis would not make the playoffs, and they have the past 2 seasons. So I think Memphis does. My 2 teams falling out right now, I don't know about the Clippers, again, until someone steps up. They start off very well, and they've struggled ever since then. But until someone steps up, then I don't see the Clippers doing anything. But if I had to pick 2 teams that are in the playoffs right now that are going out, honestly, it's probably going to be New Orleans and probably Portland. As much as I like Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, I don't think that I don't think that Portland. I think Portland has a better chance to make the playoffs than New Orleans, but New Orleans and Portland are probably my two picks to fall out if I had to pick two right now. All right, so part of the NFL, Ezekiel Elliott, his suspension was upheld and is effective. So therefore, how many games is it? Is it
6?
6 games.
Yeah.
He will be inactive, will not be allowed to play for the next 6 Cowboys games. Big game this week, actually, as they take on the Falcons in Atlanta. So they will be with running back Alfred Morris and backup running back Darren McFadden for that game. So what does this mean for the Cowboys, who are currently, mind you, sitting at 6th in the NFC right now?
Dak Prescott. That's all I have to say. I like Alfred Morris. He'll get the job done. Darren McFadden will be a good change of pace. McFadden can't carry a workload, but Morris can. McFadden can come in there to give something to an offense. But Dak Prescott, I don't think he's on the level of, I think he should be in the conversation for MVP because of the impact he's had. Do I think he is the MVP? No. You have Carson Wentz, Jared Goff are my favorite two right now. Maybe even Todd Gurley from a running back perspective. But Dak Prescott's been getting the job done. Their defense has been doing a little better than I thought they would. But still, Dak Prescott, he was not a one-year wonder as some people thought he was last year. So I think he'll keep the team alive until Zeke comes back at the very end of the year.
We're definitely going to see what Dak Prescott is made of. I think the ultimate question falls on the defense. Mm-hmm. Now the question is, can the Cowboys score as many points as they did with Zeke Elliott? One thing also, are we going to learn that maybe Zeke Elliott wasn't as good as we thought? If Alfred Morris comes in and just plays lights out, people are going to start assuming that Zeke Elliott is not as good as we may think he is.
Just the O-line.
And then the defense, but it's on the defense. So if, let's say that Alfred Morris doesn't come in and give you that same spark that Elliott did, is the defense able to step up to the challenge and hold some teams off to compensate for that? And again, we're going to see what Dak Prescott's made of. He's still got Dez Bryant down there, Cole Beasley, Jason Witten, a future Hall of Famer. There's plenty of talent still left on the team, but it's such a big blow. It's still such a big blow for this Cowboys offense, especially since, like I said, they're making a push for the playoffs. They're 6th in the bracket right now.
I think a lot of people forget Alfred Morris was a 1,600-yard rusher his rookie year. Had around, it was very close to the same amount of yards that Elliott had his rookie year, but Morris did not have as good an offensive line. And people say, okay, if he's so good of a running back, why is he in Dallas behind Zeke? When he signed there, they hadn't drafted Zeke yet. He signed there prior to the draft. So it did look like he was going to be the number one back with McFadden behind him. So yeah, he could have requested a trade or something, but Morris has never been one to make it all about him either. If they're winning, he's going to be okay with that. So I think he could be a starter on some teams. So I do think he's going to be very impactful.
And then that rises the question, and we know how the NFL fan base and some of the people are these days. People are going to say, is Ezekiel Elliott what everyone thought he was? Is he a bona fide, at the very least, I still think this is true, a top 5 running back in the NFL. Yeah. Probably top 3 in my opinion also, only trailing David Johnson and Le'Veon Bell. Mm-hmm. So there were a few, I'm not going to say necessarily way surprising, although one was, a few big moves this week from teams. The not so surprising one, or it's still a little bit of a shock, the Green Bay Packers releasing Martellus Bennett, tight end, that they signed just last offseason, and he has already been claimed by his team last season, the New England Patriots. So this is honestly a huge move for the Patriots. If Bennett can come back and be healthy, then if you look at this team, Gronk's hurt. It seems like Gronk gets hurt way too often for a guy. Like, he doesn't play as much as the Patriots would have liked. And if you have a starting caliber tight end and Martellus Bennett behind him, especially with a guy that's going to be familiar with that offense since he played for you last season, that's a huge boost to their offense. And we know how bad their defense is right now. They'll take all the offense they can get, because you're going to have a lot of offense when your defense is giving up over 21 points, almost 30 points a game. So I think this is a great move by the Pats. And the Packers, I think we are starting to see the fall of this season, how we see how impactful a loss of Aaron Rodgers is, and we're going to see that the Packers, I'm not going to say they're going to tank, but they're going to definitely decline for the rest of the season.
I think it makes New England a whole lot more dangerous, because there's number one tight end when he's healthy, obviously Gronk. Bennett, I believe, will slide into the number 2 if he's healthy as well. The number 3 is Dwayne Allen, who used to start with Andrew Luck in Indianapolis and was a big playmaker there, at least his first 2 seasons. And they haven't had a triple threat at tight end since Aaron Hernandez was with Gronk, and their number 3 his name was something like Humawani or something like that. Really hard to pronounce last name. But they ran a lot of 3 tight end sets too, and there were some plays, if you remember, they would put like Aaron Hernandez at fullback. I'm not saying they're going to do that, and they'd actually hand him off the ball. I'm not saying they're going to do that with one of those guys, because Dwayne Allen's the closest thing to a fit to that, because size. Gronk's just huge. But I think when all the tight ends get healthy, you're going to see a lot of 3 tight end sets, and then you're going to have like Brandon Cooks outside. I mean, it just opens up that offense so much more. So you don't have to worry as much about how effective the run game is going to be. You're not going to have to worry about the defense as much, because it's bolstering the offense to a different level, a completely different level.
It's also that if what could have been with that old New England team before what happened with Aaron Hernandez, what could have been with that team that had so much potential, especially at the tight end position. Another very surprising cut, in fact, this week, Colts cornerback Vontae Davis being cut. When the Colts, I get it, he was a little bit of a distraction, but you could have put him on the injured reserve. You could have done so much with him that would have been beneficial to your team, and they just cut him. I mean, he's a very good starting corner, and I just don't get. I think we have officially started to see tank mode by the Indianapolis Colts. It's one thing to make a question. Like I said, the Packers aren't necessarily tanking. They still have a decent amount of talent, but it's going to decline. The Colts are just, I don't see a bright spot in this team right now other than Jacoby Brissett and T.Y. Hilton. Other than that, I think this is a team that is set on tanking and nothing else.
I think they are tanking. Vontae just a year or two ago was in contention he was in conversation for a top 5 corner in the league, because he's a very man-to-man, kind of like just straight up man, lockdown corner. Before injury, he was at least. But my question is, the Colts are obviously tanking. I think it's obvious. But who do they go after? If they tank right now and they don't win any more games, it's still going to be hard for them to unseat Cleveland and San Francisco, in my opinion, for one of the top seeds. And one of those teams will get Saquon Barkley. Do you need a quarterback unless they trade Andrew Luck? No. But even if they do trade Andrew Luck, you have a promising guy. Jacoby Brissett has at least done something with very, very little talent. No offensive line. Frank Gore I like, but he's old. The running game's not that good. His only one consistent receiver is T.Y. Hilton. He can't do it all himself. He's being double-teamed all game. No defense. So I don't know why they would tank, because it puts them in an awkward position.
Well, I think your ultimate dream is you get up there and again, Saquon Barkley is just a once-in-a-generation player, it seems like. And your hope is that Cleveland gets up there and goes after a guy like Josh Rosen, and then San Francisco does the same. I think you don't draft a quarterback if you're the Colts by any means, because like you've said, you've got the guy you've put so much time into with Andrew Luck, and a promising guy, like you said, just he's played decent football. In fact, I'd say above average football, it seems like, with T.Y. Hilton, Frank Gore, and a past his prime Frank Gore, and not much else whatsoever. I mean, I think you got to keep him around. He's a promising player. He's definitely exceeded expectations, but that, again, as you said, that just brings up questions in the draft. Who are they going to pick? You hope that Saquon Barkley falls to number 3, unless, who knows, maybe the Cleveland players and the San Francisco players get inspired and they win a few games and ruin their chances at a number 1 spot. That would be the most Cleveland Browns thing I've ever heard of. But it all comes down to circumstance. We won't know anything about that for certain. And also, a big question mark, is Sam Darnold even going to go to the draft? Because Sam Darnold, if he goes to the draft, I believe that if the Browns are there and he's available when the Browns pick, the Browns are going to get him. Whether or not Kaiser plays well or not, they're going to get. I feel the Browns are going to be one of those teams that are either going to go after Josh Rosen or Sam Darnold, one of the two. If Darnold's there, I believe they pick Darnold. If not, then I think they get Rosen. And then San Fran, with them getting Jimmy Garoppolo and everything like that, I think that's the team that will pick Saquon Barkley. But, again, it's all up to circumstance. So, here's another thing we're going to be doing. Our player, and in this case, this week we each have 2 players to watch out for this week, whether it be a surprising performance or whether a player just to keep an eye on and see how they play. So, Isaiah, if you want to go ahead and start, who are your players to watch out for this week?
The first player I have to watch out for, he's more of a bigger name and less of a surprise, I think, than the other player. So I'm going to go with Josh Doctson, the receiver for Washington. I think it's going to be he's a player to look out for this week because he's matching up against Xavier Rhodes, who has been so good this season. He's earned the nickname of Rhodes Closed because he's played really well against receivers like Mike Evans is probably the most talented receiver, in my opinion, that he's shut down this year.
Really, the only receiver that's really beat him a good bit was Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
And you're talking about probably the best receiver in football. So
I think Doctson, he's been underwhelming this season, as have all of the Redskins receivers. I mean, Terrell Pryor has done nothing compared to what he did in Cleveland. He was better in Cleveland than he is in Washington right now. But I definitely think that Doctson will have a better game. They're going to be leaning on him. First, Minnesota's in crunch time right now. They have a chance to distance themselves a little bit in the race for the leader of their division. And Washington needs this win to stay in that race because Philadelphia is just high flying right now, but they're on a bye week this week, so they can shorten the gap, and Minnesota can lengthen theirs. So I think Doctson will show up and he's going to be a surprise. But I think that the New York Jets quarterback Josh McCown, he's in the 15th year of his career, I believe, but he's been solid this year. I actually read an article about how the Jets are incorporating the air raid offense into their system. They're running the ball more than an air raid would, but they're incorporating air raid concepts to make it easier for McCown to succeed with his skill set. And I think that it's just amazing. A guy that has underwhelmed most of his career with the exception of a late career surge in Chicago for half a season. And McCown, he's playing. I mean, he has the Jets. I think they're just 2 or 3 games back in their division.
The Jets do have a losing record right now. The 2 clear favorites in the AFC East are obviously New England and Buffalo.
Okay, the Jets are 1.5 games back from a wild card, 2.5 games back from their division lead. That's a division with the Patriots and the Bills, who were 6-2 and 5-3. So I don't know. Josh McCown is keeping them in contention with a guy like Tom Brady. I think he'll surprise people this week, especially against a bad Tampa Bay defense.
My 2 players, one, again, I'll go with the less surprising one, or the more, I'll go with the one that we talked about earlier, is look out for Alfred Morris. As we've stated, getting the starting job with Ezekiel Elliott being suspended, we get to see what he's made of against this Falcons defense, and especially in Atlanta, that'll be a fun one to look out for, as he was once a very good running back for Washington, and it was kind of I'm not going to say it was a head scratcher. It made sense at the time for when he went to Dallas, because a lot of people weren't even expecting Dallas to pick Ezekiel Elliott when he was drafted all the way up to 4. So at the time, looking back now, if you don't know the past, it does look like a head scratcher. It does look like a head scratcher, but it wasn't. So the ultimate question is, can Alfred Morris find a way to play well for this Dallas Cowboys offense enough to get them to the playoffs? Now, my other player to look out for is, in fact, Tyrod Taylor, quarterback for the Buffalo Bills against the red-hot New Orleans Saints. I'll call this bold if you want. The New Orleans Saints are the hottest team in football right now. I get it. Philly's playing well, but New Orleans, their defense is playing well for the first time in probably Drew Brees' career, except for that Super Bowl run. And they're looking red hot going into Buffalo, who's trying to fight for the division lead. New Orleans leading the NFC South. I honestly, Tyrod Taylor is one to look out for in this game. I think he's going to play well. He's been a very underrated player. Not going to say he's the greatest quarterback you could have by any means, but he's still an underrated asset to this Buffalo Bills team. Now, it's going to come down to, I think that Tyrod Taylor might lead Buffalo to a win in Buffalo over the Saints team. I don't care how hot they are. I think it's going to be a close game, and Tyrod Taylor's going to have to be a difference maker in that, along with Drew Brees for the New Orleans Saints.
I like how you said the Saints are the hottest team in football, because I agree with it. I think right now, they may end up playing each other, the Saints and Eagles, in the NFC Championship game. And if not, it's going to be a great game if they meet before that. But I think they'll be the top two teams. I think they'll meet in the NFC Championship. And I just think they're very talented. But when it comes to being the hottest team in the league, the Eagles have a better record, but I think they are the hottest because the Eagles are not hot. They're just that good. The Saints, especially on the defensive side, they don't have as much talent, but they're playing out of their minds right now. They're putting everything on the line to make a playoff run, to make a push for one of the top two seeds in the NFC. And yeah, so I think that's why they're hot. They don't have the talent, but they're putting in the work and they're making the plays to make it happen.
So just a quick recap of last night's game. Seattle won 22-16 in Glendale Stadium in Arizona. A big story. One of the bigger stories of this game: Richard Sherman out for the season with a ruptured Achilles. It was an injury and it was one of those he knew the minute it happened. What happened? You could see him on the field in the film, looking at his teammates saying, "I've torn my Achilles. I've torn my Achilles," and that's such a huge blow. I don't care how good your defense is. When you lose an all-pro corner like Richard Sherman, known as probably the second best corner in the game, at least top 3, it's a big blow to anyone. And Seattle not leading the NFC West at 5 in the NFC right now. Actually, they are just out of the playoffs. Right now. So, a team that's supposed to be making a playoff push, this hurts. This hurts anybody. And we're going to have to see if the defense can step up and play without one of their leaders, really.
Earl Thomas is out. Is out as well. He was out at least for last night's game. He may be back next week. But Cam Chancellor performed out of his mind last night. The Cardinals are my team. So, I mean, it was still painful to see Richard Sherman go down because he is such a talented player, top 3 in the league. I think the top 2, to try to put aside bias, I'm not going to name them in any order, but I think the top 3 are Patrick Peterson, Richard Sherman, and Aqib Talib and Chris Harris have both fallen off, so I think Xavier Rhodes may be up there as well.
You have to include Josh Norman, though, in Washington.
Josh Norman makes a push. He might actually beat out Rhodes for the number 3 out of those guys. But the game was crazy last night if you guys didn't watch it. Russell Wilson was magical. The Seahawks had almost double-digit penalties that gave the Cardinals first downs. It would have been a blowout if it wasn't for that.
He had a magical play that seems like you either see in 2 instances, one on Madden and 2 when Johnny Manziel did it in college, when he scrambles, runs backwards about 25 yards, then throws up a prayer, which Doug Baldwin pulls in, took it 58 yards to within the Cardinals 5, and it was magical. It was a play. I don't know if you could make a play in Madden that would be better than what we witnessed last night from Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin. Go ahead.
I mean, it was the dagger. It was on third down too. The Cardinals were
3rd and 15, I think. Or
it was 3rd and 15. The Cardinals had I think they were down by 5. They were down by 5 at that point, so they still had a chance. But injuries were just overall terrible last night. Both teams lost their left tackles. The Cardinals lost Tyvon Branch, who according to Pro Football Focus was a top 7 safety. Then Seattle lost Dwayne Brown, their left tackle, of course, and then Richard Sherman. The game was just absolutely crazy, but it was a hard-fought game. Penalties were everywhere. I was actually glad there was a no-call pass interference on one shot to the end zone that Arizona had. J.J. Nelson dropped it, but he was interfered with. That was the one play. I was actually glad. I mean, as a Cardinal fan, it sounds weird. I was glad they didn't call anything because I'm like, they're finally letting the guys play. They were calling everything, and it was great coverage. Shaquille Griffin was in coverage, and it was just a great play, even though there was interference. It was minor, but it was a great play. I was just glad they were letting them play because they were being penalized for breathing pretty much.
All right, so moving on to the NFL playoff picture right now. If the season were to end today, this is where your teams would be. In the NFC, the number 1 seed still, the Philadelphia Eagles, impressing at all levels. Number 2, as I stated, the red-hot New Orleans Saints sit, and we all know they're a better team at home. They're one of the best home teams that there are in this league. Number 3 is the Minnesota Vikings. Number 4, the Los Angeles Rams, still led by Jared Goff and Todd Gurley. Number 5, the Carolina Panthers, who, again, they're one of those teams, they will either win by 14 or they'll get beat by a field goal. They'll either win by 14, lose by a field goal, or lose by 21. And there's no in between, is what I think. And then number 6, as I stated before, is the Dallas Cowboys, losing Ezekiel Elliott. And I don't think they make the playoffs without Zeke, but we will see how Alfred Morris performs, and I can't make a true prediction until I see Alfred Morris play at the running back position. In the AFC, your number 1 seed is still the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 2 is the New England Patriots. Number 3, the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 4, the Tennessee Titans, being pushed hard by the number 5 seed Jacksonville Jaguars. And number 6 is Buffalo. Buffalo's trying to break the longest playoff drought in all active NFL teams, and I think they have a good shot to do it this year, especially if Tyrod Taylor can still play well. You still got your playmakers in Shady McCoy. I think it's also funny that former Virginia Tech quarterback Logan Thomas is a tight end for them now and catching passes. So a kind of a forgotten face around Blacksburg or anything like that. Actually, he's caught, I think it was 5 receptions this year for a long of 22 yards for them. So.
And he used to be a quarterback for the Cardinals, and I remember his first game was against the Broncos. I'm pretty sure it's when they had Peyton. And his only completion that game, he only completed 1 pass. The first completion of his career. He had like 8 incomplete passes before that. But the first completion of his career was an 81-yarder to running back Andre Ellington. It was beautiful. Great throw. It was the only good throw he had that game, but it was a great throw.
All right, so here are our predictions for the NFL this weekend. We'll start it off at a game we've talked about so much here in this little bit, the Saints at Buffalo. I said that I think that Buffalo can pull it. I think they can. I'm not going against New Orleans right now. New Orleans is playing like a team that has something to prove, and I don't think that they're going to let up on the gas pedal for a little while, especially with a team like Buffalo. I get it; they're going on the road. There's a point when I'm going to stick with the Saints in this game. I think Drew Brees plays a very, very good game. Alvin Kamara coming out playing huge minutes, playing huge football essentially, and you still got Mark Ingram. The defense, as I stated, playing very well so far. So I'm going to go with New Orleans.
I'm going to go with New Orleans as well. Mr. 5000 Drew Brees finally has a defense, and I mean that's all I really have to say about that. He has a defense.
Yeah, Drew Brees is a very underrated quarterback. When you think of NFL quarterback, you don't necessarily think of Drew Brees, but I think it's time that a lot of people probably should. He's one of those underrated players that gets looked over every single year. because he's in New Orleans. The Packers at Chicago. Normally this wouldn't be the case, but the Bears are actually favored in this game. As I stated, Aaron Rodgers out, Brett Hundley leading the Packers, and it looks like they're going to fall. I'm going to stick with the Bears. I think the Bears are one of those interesting teams. Again, they're streaky. They'll win or they'll get beat by 3 touchdowns. With this game, I don't think the Packers are going to beat them very badly, and plus Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, Mitchell Trubisky is always an interesting project in Chicago. I'm going with Chicago at Soldier Field.
I'm going to go with Chicago too. Soldier Field's a harsh environment to play in, especially in the cold. Then you have an underrated Bears defense, Tariq Cohen, who can throw a touchdown pass a couple weeks ago. Jordan Howard, even if you take out Trubisky, I think the Bears have it.
Okay, the Cleveland Browns at Detroit. I'm picking Detroit. I'm not picking the Browns until they prove to me they can win a game. And in Detroit, where a lot of teams have fallen this year, I'm not going to pick the Cleveland Browns until they show me something that makes it worth picking, because they are the worst team in the NFL right now.
I go with the Lions as well. Cleveland is Cleveland. They're the Browns, and yeah, they're not going to win anything. I'm not a big fan of their management right now either. Their front office, the coaching staff. So yeah, I gotta go to Detroit.
The Browns are just lovable losers in a sense. They haven't been relevant since, such a long time. And
since they were an expansion team,
exactly.
They haven't.
And I think also the Lions are not a pushover by any means. Matthew Stafford is still a very underrated quarterback. Also, Golden Tate is still up there. I think that Detroit wins this game, and I think it's by a pretty decent margin, too. Cincinnati at Tennessee in Nashville. I think that I like the Titans in this game. I think A.J. Green comes out with vengeance after what happened with Jalen Ramsey last week. But Tennessee, I like the way Tennessee's playing right now. I don't think they win the division. I think Jacksonville comes back and wins this division, but I like Tennessee this week.
I like Tennessee as well. When it comes to who wins the division, I really don't care. I think whoever doesn't will make a wild card because they're both really talented teams. But I think Tennessee will win.
Pittsburgh at Indy. Again, they're embracing this theory of tanking, and Pittsburgh looks very good right now. I'm going with the Steelers in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Steelers as well. I haven't had to pick this different yet, but Martavis Bryant's expected to have an increased role. The Colts seem to be tanking, so Pittsburgh's my pick.
It'll be interesting to see what Juju Smith-Schuster comes up with this week. The Jets at the Buccaneers. I'm going with the Jets. I'm not trusting a Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Buccaneers team by any means in a long time, and the Bucs they had so much expectations between the season, and they've struggled so far. They have not lived up to it. This was a team that a lot of people thought could win the NFC South, and other than Mike Evans, that lone bright spot, they have not looked good this year. So I'm going with the New York Jets.
Okay, I'm going with the Jets. I'm one of the few fans of Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I don't think the Bucs eat a W this week. I don't think they're going to do that. I think the Jets will be eating a W in Tampa.
So the Vikings in Washington. This is such a hard game for me. The Redskins they're a tricky team to pick. They'll either get a win or they'll lose by a good margin, and it always seems to be. Unless it's a blowout, it's a very close game. They don't blow a team out by any means, no matter where it is. Including the 49ers this year. They didn't blow out the Niners by any means. So I'm going to go with the Vikings. I like the way the defense is playing. Case Keenum, shockingly to me, is playing very well so far. I like Doxson against Xavier Rhodes. I like Minnesota in this game.
I like Washington. I'm a fan of Minnesota's team as a whole. I think they take the division. But I'm a fan of Washington because Case Keenum's going to be throwing against Josh Norman. And Josh Norman will make him pay with DJ Swearinger behind him. I think they're going to make him pay. So I think Washington, it'll be a close game. I'm saying 6 points or less will be the difference. But I think Washington wins.
The LA Chargers at Jacksonville. Again, I think Jacksonville wins this division. I like Jacksonville in this game.
I like Jacksonville. Their defense, Leonard Fournette should be back this week after violating team rules. But the defense is great. It's only getting better.
Hashtag Saxonville.
Yeah, Saxonville. AJ Boy. You have Jalen Ramsey. Their defensive line's dominant. Their run defense isn't great, but it is what it is. The Chargers I like. I love Phillip Rivers. I love their offense. But their defense isn't that good. I'd like Fournette will carve them up, and their defense is going to play dominant.
Houston in L.A. I'm going with the Rams. I'm not trusting a Tom Savage-led Texans team. If it was Deshaun Watson, I'd have a little bit harder of a decision on my mind. But the Rams are playing very well right now, and I don't trust Tom Savage to lead the Texans to a win, especially in Los Angeles against this team right now.
I'm going with the Rams. I think they have two potential MVP candidates on offense, Defensive Player of the Year candidates on defense, one anyway. I think the Rams, call me crazy, they're the third best team in the NFC behind the Saints and Eagles. I'd say they might be the fourth or fifth best team in the NFL. So I'm going with the Rams.
Cowboys at Falcons. I think Alfred Morris plays pretty well in this game, but I like Atlanta, and I think Julio Jones he's had a little bit of a underachieving season. He still hasn't had a bad season by any means, but compared to what everyone expected Julio Jones to have, it's been a little bit of an underachievement. That being said, I'll look for Julio Jones to break out this game. The Cowboys secondary is not great by any means, and I think that they use him, plus their plethora of other receivers and running backs, to pick apart the Cowboys defense. Again, as I stated earlier, a lot of the responsibility for the Cowboys goes on their defense, and I don't know how much I trust their defense to get a win here.
I think it's going to be a shootout. I trust the Falcons' defense more. Julio has an injury problem, so I think he might have a great game, but it might hold him back to some extent. Dak and Alfred are both going to have good games. In my opinion, I think they will. But I'm taking Dak Prescott and the Cowboys.
Okay. And here comes the most relevant game of the week: the Giants at the 49ers. The 49ers getting their first win this week in San Francisco. That's a cross-country game. Cross-country games are not fun for anyone, especially a team that's only this. At this point in the season, there's only one win compared to these two teams. If there was a game that in this schedule that we weren't going to predict, if we didn't do all of them, this would be the game because it's so irrelevant. But I like the Niners in this game. No explanation needed.
I go with the Giants, and my reasoning is terrible. I think that the Niners are not in win now mode. They're not. I don't think they're trying to get that first win. They're trying to get the confidence up of the team. But if they were trying to win this week, Garoppolo's been with the team a week. He's a smart player. They would give him a chance to start. They even said they didn't bring him in to save the season, but the franchise. So I think that they're going to, it may resemble tanking this week. Because if they get a win, Cleveland may be able to snag Saquon Barkley in the draft.
Cleveland won't draft. I mean, they might. I still think they'll go after a quarterback no matter what position they get. The Patriots at the Broncos. This is an interesting game. The Pats always seem to struggle in Denver, in the Mile High City. I am picking the Patriots in this game. The Broncos have not looked good so far. Brock Osweiler is still a mess for that team. But look out for this game. The Pats always seem to struggle in Sports Authority Field.
I'm going the Pats. I believe Osweiler is starting again. And I don't trust Osweiler. He's not the same guy in that system he was a few years ago because the defense isn't as dominant. So I'm going to England.
Miami going to Carolina on Monday night. I honestly like Carolina in this game. The Dolphins are one of those, I think are another team that's, I'm not going to say they've given up by any means, but they're last in the AFC East right now. They don't have a whole lot going for them, whereas Carolina's making a playoff push. So I think Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, and the Panthers team gets it done this weekend it gets it done Monday night in Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte.
I think it resembles a trap game, but I'm still going Carolina. I don't trust Miami. Too many injuries and Jay Cutler.
So that's going to do it for my co-host here, Isaiah. He's got to go to class today. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to be talking about NCAA football this upcoming weekend. So the college football rankings, college football playoffs. Number 1 is Georgia. Number 2 is Alabama. Number 3 is Notre Dame. Number 4 is Clemson. Do I agree with the top four? Now that I don't really know. It's just one of those games. It's just one of those topics in which there's so many good teams right now fighting for a top four spot. Outside of them, you've got Wisconsin, who's undefeated. You've still got Miami, who's undefeated. You've still got Oklahoma, who's vying for a spot. TCU, and no, I think they've got it right compared to those teams. But these four could look drastically different by the end of the season. Who knows? In fact, potentially there could only be one team left in this top four. Although I do believe at least two of them make it. The Heisman race. Listed, the favorites are Baker Mayfield, Bryce Love, Saquon Barkley is still up there. My favorite right now, I still like Saquon Barkley, but the favorite right now compared to that everyone's saying is probably still Baker Mayfield. A team that I'm surprised about are the Iowa State Cyclones. They've made a few staple wins this year, one of them being Oklahoma, and the other one, in fact, the two teams that are playing in the Big 12 this week, Oklahoma and TCU, both of their losses are to Iowa State. So this is a team that a couple years ago they were not very good. Now they're fighting and they're ranked. So moving on to the predictions for the NCAA this weekend. Number 9, Washington at Stanford. I'm going to pick Washington. Stanford's underachieved this year. Jake Browning has been playing very well for Washington still. I'm going with Washington. Number 12, Michigan State. At number 13, Ohio State. I like Ohio State in this game. They bounce back. Again, I get it. Michigan State's coming off that monster win against Penn State. In fact, Penn State's second loss in a row. But I like Ohio State in Columbus after a letdown loss to Iowa. Number 15, Oklahoma State. At number 21, Iowa State. I like Iowa State. They've played very well in Ames, Iowa. They've played very well this year there, and I think they get a win over another Big 12 team this weekend. I'm not going to predict this game. I just wanted to point out that UCF ranked, I believe, number 17. No, they are ranked, favored by 40.5 points over UConn. If you're betting, I would be tempted to take UConn because I think they can at least hold it within 40. Arkansas at LSU, it's Death Valley. Arkansas doesn't look very good this year, and LSU is going to be. I think LSU is going to win by a decent margin. Number 17, Virginia Tech at Georgia Tech. I like Virginia Tech in this game. I think it's going to be close. Georgia Tech always plays Virginia Tech well, as it's always going to be stated about Georgia Tech, the triple option. It's always fun. They're always a team to look out for also. They're on the verge for an upset at all times. In fact, I think that's a team you got to watch out for when Georgia plays them later on this season. Florida State at number 4, Clemson. Give me Clemson in the other Death Valley. Florida State doesn't look very good this year. If they always have a fighting chance, and if it was in Tallahassee, I would consider it a little bit more, but it's in Clemson, so I like Clemson. Number 20, Iowa. At number 8, Wisconsin. Iowa coming off a statement win against Ohio State, winning by a pretty big margin. But I still like Wisconsin, undefeated, number 8 in the nation. I think they're going to keep that going. And if they mess around and win the Big Ten, they might get a college football playoff berth. UVA at Louisville. UVA is one of those teams, if I pick them, that they lose, so I'm going to pick Louisville. With Lamar Jackson, especially in Louisville, I like Louisville in this game. West Virginia at Kansas State. Give me West Virginia. Kansas State has this is one of those games I'm not entirely sure about, but I'm still going to go with West Virginia. Will Greer leading the Mountaineers in K-State. Number 11, USC at Colorado. Colorado is one of those teams that I still think they're not bad by any means, but I think that USC can find a way to knock them off this week. It won't be a blowout by any means. Kentucky at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt fighting for bowl eligibility. They need to win 2 of their next 3 games, and I think it starts right here. They beat Kentucky in Nashville. Number 2, Alabama at number 16, Mississippi State. I'm going with Alabama. I don't think anyone's beaten Alabama this season. I think Mississippi State's a very underrated team, but Alabama is Alabama. They are that good. Tennessee at Missouri. I'm going with Missouri. Their offense looks red hot right now, and Tennessee in the same situation as Vanderbilt, need to win 2 of their next 3. And their schedule, they go to Mizzou, then they have LSU in Neyland, and then finally they finish with Vanderbilt. I don't see them winning 2 of those 3 games, and I don't think they get a win in Missouri. Missouri favored by double digits. Arizona State at UCLA. Arizona State, I think, gets the win here. Arizona State's been playing good football as of late. UCLA struggling. Rosen's been injured for a little bit, so I think Arizona State gets the win. Number 6 TCU at number 5 Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma in this game. I want to pick TCU, but I like Oklahoma. I like Baker Mayfield fighting for this game. I don't agree with Oklahoma being ranked number 5 when Wisconsin and Miami are lower. I don't like that, but in the grand scheme of things, no one knows what's going to happen until after conference championships, and this is the first year in a long time that the Big 12 actually has a conference championship game, and I like Oklahoma in this game, especially in Norman. Number 3, Notre Dame at number 7, Miami. It's the Catholics versus convicts. It's the rematch. It's the reignition of a famous rivalry, a staple of college football, and I like Notre Dame. I think Miami should be higher than number 7. They should be a better ranking. I don't think that they are who we think they are, or who their record suggests. I think that Notre Dame comes into Miami, and I think they get a win. It's going to be close. I think Notre Dame wins by maybe a touchdown, but I think Notre Dame pulls out the win and continues to impress, because they're a sneaky team. They're an independent, obviously, and their only loss this season is to the number 1 team in the nation, the Georgia Bulldogs. So they're a team to look out for, and I think they get a win against the Hurricanes. And finally, number 1 Georgia at number 10 Auburn. This is what I would like to call a trap game, but I'm going with Georgia. I think this is a game Auburn could mess around and shake up the SEC with. Unless, now, it's still technically alive. The chances are that Auburn could make the SEC championship, but they're probably not going to, because they need, if Alabama wins this week at all, they clinch. They clinch the SEC West. So Auburn can make a statement win here, and Georgia, and they could, but especially in Jordan Hare, but I like Georgia to knock off the Tigers. Well, that's going to do it here on Hot Takes with Holmes here on Radio Free Radford. If you liked what you heard, be sure to tune in again next Friday from 11 a.m. to noon. Thanks for listening.